Get ready for more valuable financial insights from Northern California's premier retirement income planners, Dan Ahmad and Jim Files, owners of Peak Financial Freedom Group. For more information, go to peakfin.com. And now, here's Dan and Jim.
Welcome to the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. You're here with Dan Ahmad and Jim Files, and we are here to help you understand your money a lot better than you ever have. And that's one of our goals. We find that the average consumer comes in, talks to us, and they feel so bad, Jim, because they don't understand much about their money and they think everybody else does. But in reality, very few people really understand what they need to do at retirement. They know how to save money and they sock it away in their 401ks, etc., but they don't know how to use it. You know, one lady last week asked me, how do I make it liquid? How do I make my money liquid? What she was asking is, how do I create income?
Right.
That's what her goal was. Our firm, Peak Financial Freedom Group, we only work with retirees and those people getting ready to retire. It's our specialty. So we only work with those people who now have those types of questions and problems saying, what do I do now? I've saved this money. I've been a really good saver. I've done what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know what in the heck to do to replace my paychecks once I retire. So thanks for everyone who is a loyal listener. We know people have listened to us for years and years. A lot of you have called in. We've met with you, but you can schedule your free consultation to come in and meet with us. And a lot of people say, I just want to come meet you guys. Just dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money. That's pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money. You can also listen to our podcast. We have all of our radio shows will be recorded in podcast form, as well as our YouTube channel, which will have our radio show, but we also film it because some people like to see us as well as hear us, and we all learn differently. It's just a great way to do that. And just don't hesitate to call us with your questions. You go on our website. There's a question line there. There's a live chat feature there. It's pretty cool. So we're trying to do everything we possibly can to help people understand their money. And we love to meet with all the people that need help, that have been really good savers, done what you should have done, saved your money. Now you're worried, what's the next step? We can discuss anything you want to about your retirement, your financial future. People ask us about their home loans, paying it off, Social Security, all these things. But we really love building those written plans for the listeners and then helping them to feel that retirement is not the end, but really the start of their next phase of life. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, they're going to have retirement for 20, 30, 40 years. And it is the next phase. And you better be ready to launch into that. And the key ingredient to that is going to be, do you have enough cash coming in on a monthly basis to live that life that you want? So I'm going to give a quick overview of today's show. But if you do want to meet, just dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money, pound 250 keyword money, and you'll get a hold of us. Or even simpler, go to our website, peakfin.com, and use the chat feature. It's awesome. We're going to do a quote of the week. We always like that just to kind of get people going with the show. We're going to talk about taxes in retirement, Social Security running dry, a problem solve. We're going to do a case study, really cool case study. And then we'll go into how we really help people like you do what they need to do to become financially successful. So how about, Jim, why don't you say hi to everyone and then cover the financial quote of the week?
Well, hi, everybody. As Dan just said. I'll go ahead and cover this quote. It's pretty cool. Milton Friedman, he's a renowned economist and Nobel laureate. And he stated in his quote here, inflation is one form of taxation that can be imposed without legislation. And if you look at inflation, if you read the numbers this morning, I was watching CNBC this morning at 6 o'clock, and the inflation numbers came in hotter than expected. The market dropped quite significantly, the largest drop we had in the market since March of the last year. So there is concern over inflation. And you as a consumer getting ready to retire, you should be looking at inflation very closely, because if you look at the numbers, let's just assume it's the feds think they can get inflation down to 2%, but we don't like the way they calculate the numbers. But let's just assume inflation's 3%, and you live 20 years plus in retirement. That means 3 times 20, that's 60%, right? That means if your budget's $10,000 a month right now, in 20 years, it's going to be $16,000 or more for those same goods and services. So you have to make sure that you have enough income coming in retirement, not enough just to cover your budget today, but also, more importantly, how do you cover your budget in the future? And what Dan and I talk about a lot with the consumers that we meet with that eventually become our clients is, how do we generate excess cash flow above your budget number so that we are taking into consideration how inflation is going to impact your budget? Because without doing that, I promise you, you will have a very struggled time in retirement and you'll worry a lot, Dan.
Well, think about what you just said was perfect for people to really ruminate on. Think about. And if you have been a great saver and they've been investing money and they've watched their assets grow and they go up and down, some volatility, but they want the growth. When you think about inflation, everyone has been told by all these big companies, their 401ks, their brokers, their bank, their brother, that the way you keep pace with inflation is to make sure you have growth on your assets that outpaces inflation, right? Well, the growth on the assets isn't the most important thing. It's the growth and the dependability of your income that's the most important thing to keep pace with inflation. Because what if you're in retirement now and you suffer a 20 or 30% loss and you're taking income out? How are you ever going to keep pace with inflation?
You're not going to.
It's a mathematical impossibility. You
No.
won't. So you have to look at that. When you look at inflation, it's the dependability of your income and it's the increased ability of that income to put you in a position that maybe we can then fight inflation.
The issue that people have, Dan, is they don't understand the difference between growth and income and the different stages of retirement planning. Because in stage one, if you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, or early 50s, I should say, you should be trying to accumulate your assets and you should be going for growth because you need to get enough assets so that you can use them for income in the future. And you're willing to take risk. But as you get close to retirement, or particularly within 4 to 5 years of retirement, and in retirement, you better change the game up. You better figure out how to preserve those assets that you've grown, and we call that asset preservation. And now all of a sudden is a different juncture in your life. You need to convert those assets into income. So you need income generation. So people have to understand in retirement, if you retire at 65, you live to life expectancy, let's just say that's 85. Hopefully you live to 100, but nevertheless, you have to make sure that are you focused on growth and taking significant risk in your portfolio and hoping it's going to work out? Or alternatively, should you be concerned about asset preservation and figure out how to generate the most reliable income?
Well, with people's number one fear before they retire and right when they retire being, how in the heck am I going to replace my paychecks once I retire? I think the answer is simple. It's just they haven't said it out loud.
Yeah.
So everyone needs to say it out loud. The most important thing in retirement is to generate dependable income that won't run out. And if you do that, you'll worry less about your money. Now, let's get back to inflation with that same exact concept that you're talking about there. And you kind of hit on it there. What we will create in all of our plans as our number one goal is not just to meet your budget. And we're going to make you do a budget, which is good because that'll tell us how much money you need in retirement, not a tight budget, but a loose budget. But the key is, if your budget is $8,000, the key is not to just give you $8,000 a month of income, because some months you're going to need a lot more than that and you don't have any extra money to spend. So you want to make sure then you generate excess monthly cash flow. You talked about that earlier, Jim. That's how we keep pace with inflation. Because what if your budget's $8,000 now, but what if, like we do in a lot of plans, what if we create a plan that has $12,000 a month of net income after taxes? So their budget's 8, we create 12, they have $4,000 extra to spend. How does that now allow us to fight inflation?
Well, first of all, it changes someone's life. And second of all, it does fight inflation. And it not only fights inflation, but it gives you extra money above inflation to do the things that you dreamed about doing in retirement. And a lot of people, Dan, we talk about these numbers. Well, how do I get $8,000 a month? How do I get $10,000 a month? I have $1 million, $1.5 million in my portfolio, or 2 million, or whatever the number is. How do I generate that income? Those sound like unreasonable numbers, but they're really, really not. If you know how to do proper planning, if you're using the correct financial instruments, if you're using proper strategies to control risk, you indeed will be surprised at how much income you can actually generate off your assets. But again, if you try to do it conventionally, with just stocks and bonds, no, you can't get to that number realistically.
Well, and you can't do it the way you've done it to date.
No.
In accumulating assets. I think that's the biggest key, right?
Yeah.
You can't do the same thing and expect to get a different result, that your volatile portfolio is going to provide you a steady stream of income. It won't work with how the money's for most people are invested right now.
That's right. So a key to all this, Dan, is making sure that people differentiate the difference between growth and income. And again, you have to decide, if you're retired or soon to be retired, are you looking for growth? Or are you looking for income? Now, not that you can't get both.
Yeah,
you get both,
you
right?
You get both. Yeah. In fact, let's go into our second section right when we get back. But ultimately, if you'd like to meet with us and talk about what Jim just said, growth and income, dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money. You're back with Dan and Jim and the Peak Financial Freedom Hour. And we just talked a lot about inflation, Jim, because that really scares people. And we went over our philosophy of how to fight inflation. We don't try to keep up with inflation. We try to beat inflation when we design a plan for someone that will allow them to stay ahead. And we did a quick example of, if someone has a budget of $8,000 a month, but we give them $12,000 a month in net income, it's going to take inflation a long time before that 8,000 will get eaten up into that 12,000. And in most cases, our clients will stop spending as much money when they get into their late 70s and early 80s, and they're protected at that point. Plus, we'll build in the potential for the income to increase. So I think we can cover inflation with really good planning. But the second phase that then freaks people out on top of inflation is taxes. And you think about how many times have you seen people not willing to use their money out of their IRAs, their SEPs, their 401ks, their brokerage accounts because of taxes?
All the time. People don't really understand taxes. So what they think about is, okay, I can't generate more income because I have more taxes, and that makes me feel uncomfortable, which means all of a sudden, how do you maintain your lifestyle in retirement if you're afraid to spend your money, right?
Well, and then if they pay too much taxes, isn't that what you always say people are worried about, making a big financial mistake? Don't they think they're going to pay too much tax?
They all do.
It's a financial mistake.
They all do. They all do because they don't have proper tax planning, right? What they do is they hire an accountant to do their tax return, but they don't understand taxes and how it affects your income in retirement. And you'd be surprised if you understand taxes, and we see this every single day. We have clients that come in and that say, I don't want to make too much money because I don't want to pay the taxes. But all of a sudden, at the same time, they're saying, but I want to do these things in retirement. I want to take my money and spend it because I saved it, and I want to make sure I enjoy my retirement. Well, you have to understand taxes in order to satisfy that wish of using your money in retirement. So we have a very simple way of doing that, Dan.
Well, how about this example? Maybe I'll explain that and you give me the comments on it. Client came in, single lady. Her husband had passed away. She's, I think, 64, 65. She makes about $120,000 a year right now working.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of money. But the problem is we know how much that shrinks by the time it comes in her net paycheck.
Yep.
So she makes about half of that.
Mm-hmm.
She makes about $5,000 a month because she grosses $10,000. She has Social Security, federal and state taxes, and she puts her max into her 401k. She nets about $5,000. So she always thinks she's going to lose 50% of her money no matter what happens, even at retirement. So she's thinking, oh my gosh, I have to make a lot more money.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a plan together and we showed her that during retirement, we can get her between Social Security and her assets, $100,000 of gross income. And she said, that's not enough. There's no way that's not enough. Well, we did the math and it came out that her $100,000 of income, she will only lose 15% in federal and state taxes when we do the tax plan.
Mm-hmm.
So she's going to now net $85,000 a year or $7,000 a month, not $5,000 a month. So now can she retire and have enough money to travel and do the things she wants just by that simple mechanism of planning?
Yeah. And the planning part of it, just so people understand, is that we don't have, we're not behind the curtains like a magician and trying to, toss around, all kinds of magic tricks. What we're using is just the law, right? The law is that you don't have to pay Social Security tax when you retire because you don't have ordinary income. So you save the Social Security tax on your employer money. And secondly, you're not making contributions to your retirement plan. So you don't have that money going into a plan that you don't see. You're using those monies in order to generate the lifestyle you're looking for. So when you actually see how the numbers are created, you'd be super surprised at understanding that, hey, I can generate maybe as much or even more. Matter of fact, I have a great story. Yesterday, I had a client come in. He's single. He's from the Bay Area. He drives up for every meeting. It was his third meeting yesterday. He was very concerned about retiring, and he was just nervous. He did a great job in saving assets. He had about $2 million of investable assets. He has one child grown, and he said to me on the first meeting, he said, I am worried about ever being able to retire. And he did his budget. He had a great budget with about $5,200 a month, and that included his travel, but he's single, right? And he didn't have a mortgage. He had paid off his mortgage. He had one rental home, collect a little rent income. His gross income was $75,000 a year. He was a support person for a technology company. When I finished his plan up, Dan, yesterday, we were able to get him $139,000 of income in his first year. We were able to net him almost double the amount of income that he's receiving right now. He thought he's 66. He wanted to retire at 70. He's going to tell his boss this week that he wants to retire at the end of this year, which is great stuff.
That's awesome because it told him the bottom line. And no matter what, we're going to tell you as listeners where you're at. If you want to find out when you can retire, we can calculate that out and we'll tell you the truth, whether it's now or whether it's 2 or 3 years from now. Just dial #250 on your cell phone, say the keyword money, or even easier, go to our website, hit the chat button, and you can then talk to one of our live chat people that will then get you scheduled. And there's no cost, there's no obligation. We'll meet with you because it's good for our company to make sure that we are always providing that type of education. And we see that happening all the time. You think about the one lady we just talked about right before that example. She thought, like your client, she had to work to 72. She can retire at 65. Those 7 years are going to be priceless to her, because if you wait till you're 72, do you think you're going to have a better retirement than if you retire at 65? There's
Nope.
no way.
Nope.
There's just no way for most people. They're going to have a lot better retirement now, and they'll be less stressed. They can start doing the things with their families. They can do all the fun things they wanted to plan to do right now and not wait, because I guarantee if you can retire at 65, but you wait to 72, at age 85, there's no way you're going to say, yeah, I'm so happy that I worked till 72 and it was the best thing in my life. Is anyone ever going to really say that?
No, but also the key to planning too, Dan, and we see this all the time. People are thinking that they can't retire to a certain age, or they have to wait till 70 or 72, as we're describing here on this radio show. But it's really cool when we go through this planning process, and maybe the person's 61 or 62 or 63, and we actually show them they can retire when they want to retire. They might be able to retire immediately. Even though they don't retire, knowing that you can retire, knowing that you can just tell your boss that, hey, I'm done at any time.
Take
will make
this
your life.
job and
That's right.
the
Shove it,
song.
baby. But it's nice. It's a great feeling to know you can retire, but there's no way you can know you can retire unless you have a full plan in place, Dan.
And that's just key. The key is to have a plan in place where someone can see it firsthand. I had a lady come in this week, and smart lady, but she works with a big company that has a 401k with one of the biggest 401k company names. Everyone, single person listening now, knows the company, has heard it. And basically, she's tried to get a plan, and they gave her a 38-page document. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this company that we know, this never give plan, gives a plan. All it is an asset allocation.
Yeah.
38 pages.
Yeah.
She goes, I don't even know what to read. It was so small in writing. She had no idea. And she goes, this is my plan. I go, this isn't your plan. All this is saying is how your assets are going to be allocated. Nothing to do with the plan. And then I showed what a plan looks like. She goes, that's what I want. That's what a plan is. My broker won't even go over this plan with me. So I don't even know what it means.
Yeah. Well, brokers, as we know, can't really do the plans like we're doing, because we're doing income plans, tax plans. We're doing legacy plans. We're providing tax advice because we can at our firm, because Dan, you're an enrolled agent with the IRS. And an accredited tax advisor, we can provide tax advice, which is mandatory for you to understand your plan. So unless you put all the numbers together so they can see them for the next 30 years, where their income's coming from, will the income go up? Will it go down? Will it go away? Is it guaranteed? Is it not guaranteed? All that stuff needs to be in writing so you can see it and feel comfortable with the numbers, Dan.
You're back with Dan and Jim, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour, and we're covering a lot of good subjects for you today. Hopefully you're learning a lot. And right now, there's several areas of taxes in retirement that we want to make sure you don't overlook. And as Jim mentioned, I was an enrolled agent with IRS for 30 years. I'm an accredited tax advisor. So we're able, and we do provide tax advice and tax planning for our clients, which is different than most of the advisors you're working with, because unless they're a tax advisor, they cannot by law give tax advice. So that's probably why you're wondering, gosh, my person never gives us any help in these matters. Well, it's because they can't. If they are giving you help, like a lot of advisors are saying, well, we want to make sure you do this Roth conversion. They probably shouldn't even be giving you that tax advice. A CPA or another tax expert should be. But let's look at some of the big things, Jim. One of the things that we look at stopping people from using their money to create the retirement of their dreams is they don't know what's going to happen when they start drawing money out of their accounts. And they think they're going to get killed with taxes. They think if they pull out $100,000 from their IRA each year, they're going to pay $50,000 in taxes, because that's what's happened when they were working. But when you look at retirement, 99.9% of our clients, none of them are going to have big tax issues when they retire. And these are people that have saved $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, even $10 million. They're not going to be in a bad tax situation, meaning they're probably going to be in a 25% or lower combined federal and state tax bracket. Now, if that means you get to keep 75% or more of your money, is that a pretty good deal net of taxes?
That's a great deal. But at the same time, if you do have a bad tax situation after we do the planning, that's a good thing too, right? That means you're just making all kinds of money. But what Dan is saying here is that you don't have to be afraid of taxes if you understand how to do a tax plan in retirement, because there's certain taxes you're not going to be paying in retirement that you're paying now, and you're not making contributions to your retirement plan in retirement. So you have more after-tax income than you would if you were working at that same time.
Definitely. We had a scenario where a client, and this might be you listening. If it's you and you want some help like this, make sure dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword money, pound 250 on the cell phone, say the keyword money, or go to our website and use the chat feature. But I had a client come in, and it's about a month ago, and they said, you know what? I hate taxes more than anything in life. And, I laughed and they go, no, I'm serious. I said, okay, I'm going to take this as a note. You're serious about the taxes. So they said, I want you to design a plan that even if it's for a short time period, I'm going to pay the minimal amount of taxes. So we looked at what was available in the marketplace as far as strategies and planning. So I put together a plan that for the next 5 years, they basically will be in a 1% tax bracket. So for 5 years, they'll pay 1%. So they're going to have about $120,000 a year cash flow and be in about a 1% overall bracket for the next 5 years. After that, their taxes will go up normally, but normally for them is probably going to be about 18% total tax. So when we showed him this, he said, this has to be illegal. It's not illegal. It's just how the tax code works if you know how to use it in the client's benefit. And they loved it. He just could not believe that there's a way to basically tell the IRS, I'm not paying anything more than 1% tax for the next 5 years. After that, I'll start paying some. But you want to pay the least amount of taxes up front versus paying the least amount of tax on the back end. And that's why when people start talking about Roth conversions, it's exactly opposite. They want you to pay all the taxes up front in the hopes that you might save taxes later. And I don't see that really saving people a lot of taxes later.
No, also, Dan, there are financial instruments out there that most consumers don't understand, don't even know they're available, where you can take after-tax income, invest it in those vehicles, and have that tax deferred, right, for their life. You don't have to take it out like an IRA at 73 years of age. So there are strategies that we use here at our firm. If you are really tax conscious, we'll put those strategies in place for you.
Well, how about right now when you look at, like you're talking about, someone has a portfolio of $2 million of stocks, mutual funds, et cetera, bonds, bond funds, whatever. And even if the portfolio doesn't go up, even if it goes down, they might have $100,000 of phantom income they got to pay tax on this year, which means they might have to take $20,000 or $30,000 of their own income to pay for it because they don't go into their portfolio that's flat or down and take the money out. They use their other income. They're like, we're getting killed with taxes. We don't have enough money to spend. Well, there's ways like you're saying that we can tax defer those dollars that are growing inside the account and not have to pay tax when the market goes down either. So key there is we can definitely help to make your withdrawal strategies as tax efficient as possible. How about then, let's look at this topic. Taxation of Social Security benefits. A lot of people think two things and they both are wrong. One, that all my Social Security taxes or Social Security benefits are taxable. The second is that none of my Social Security benefits are taxable. So are both those correct or wrong?
Yeah. I mean, they're wrong because all your Social Security is not taxable. You don't pay state tax, and you only pay up to maximum of 85% on your federal tax side. So you are getting a break on your Social Security. It also depends on how much income you're generating. So the less income you're generating, the less taxes you're paying on the federal side. So you have to be a Social Security expert to make sure you understand how taxes are going to affect your Social Security and whether or not you should turn on other income sources based on taxation if that's your concern.
Definitely. And how about this topic? Tax diversification. People want to know what the heck that is. Well, that is a way to use the assets you have, or more importantly, to redesign, remodel how your portfolio is made up. So we now can have a proper type of tax plan where you can manage how much you're paying in taxes efficiently. What that means is we know if you have IRAs or 401ks, those monies that we withdraw are going to be taxable and just on the amount that we take out. We know then if you have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, there could be dividends, which are taxed a certain way, but there could be capital gains, which could have some lower taxation on there for that. And there also might be ways to take out principal, no tax. And we could have bank money that the interest is taxable, but the principal isn't taxable. It's tax-free. So if you have those things now that we can now blend and put together in a plan, can we then design a really good tax diversification plan for them?
Yes. And what we're talking about is true diversification, right? We're talking about not only asset diversification, we're talking about income diversification. So as income planners, which we are at our firm, we are looking at all these different strategies to make sure that we can have multiple income sources in retirement that are not contingent upon each other. Some of those income sources are going to be income coming off your portfolio. As you mentioned, Dan, it could be dividends, it could be interest, it could be withdrawals out of the portfolio. Some of those income sources are not out of the portfolio. They're out of different instruments. It could be guaranteed income. You might have a pension. You might have rental income. There's also ways that you can develop your own personal pension type of investment whereby you will have a guaranteed income stream for the rest of your life. So there's lots of different ways we can divide up the income sources in retirement, Dan.
You're back with Dan and Jim, the Peak Financial Freedom Hour, and we've talked about a lot of subjects today: taxes, inflation, what the goal is as far as designing a plan to meet and exceed your budget retirement. But now let's do what we call a problem solver, kind of a case study, hypothetical case study. So let's say we talk about Lisa, who's 60 and she's working. She makes a lot of money. She makes about $220,000. She's doing really good in the technology industry. She nets about $12,000 a month. So she nets a lot of money each month net of taxes. But remember, she makes $220,000 and only nets $12,000. She wants to plan for retirement, and she'd like to retire at 65. That's her goal. At 65, Jim, she will have $3,000 of Social Security, $2,000 of net rental income. So she's going to have $5,000 a month of fixed income. Okay. She has $2.5 million of assets, but she's like, how in the heck do I go from $5,000 a month of income to $12,000 after taxes of income and still be okay? So one of the things that I suggested as we did the planning for was, of our $2.5 million, we're going to take $1.5 million and we're going to use that to create what we call a personal pension or income in 5 years from that. The $1.5 million will guarantee her at 65, $150,000 a year of income. Think about what that's saying when you're listening. 1.5 million guarantees her a 10% payout after 5 years of 150,000. So now we have her $60,000 from Social Security and rental, 150. We have 210,000, which is a little short of her 220, but net of taxes, she'll have $13,000 of income net of taxes, and she had less gross income with Social Security guaranteed, the personal pension through the annuity guaranteed, and only the money from the rental, and the rest of her money, we hadn't even taken into consideration that she can still have probably $1.5 million that she can pull income off of.
So that was the other $100,000 that was left. Excuse me, the other $1 million. The $1 million.
New 401k contributions.
Yeah, exactly. And the beauty about this, Dan, the way you described that plan is all that money was guaranteed in one fashion or the other, which means that when you wake up every morning in retirement and you have that income coming in, which is guaranteed every day, every month, every year for the rest of your life, you can do the things that you dreamed about because you're not worried about the market. You're not worried about where your income's coming from. We still have plenty of money left over to put in the market, right?
Hey, so do me a favor and talk about the psychological section. You just covered it right there. Talk about the psychological section, the emotional benefit of she's 60, she's got to work to 65. And if she doesn't know everything's going to be okay, how that would feel versus having a plan from 60 to 65. How will it be to work those next 5 years knowing? So cover it if you don't have a plan, what it feels like, and then emotionally if you do have a plan.
Well, this lady, for example, now has a plan. She knows right now that no matter what happens, she can see in writing exactly where her income is going to come from every year for the rest of her life. She knows how much money is going to be guaranteed and not guaranteed. She knows she can retire at a specific date. She has all that information. She knows when she can retire, she can do the things that she dreamed about for the last 40 years when she wasn't retired because she has a plan in place. If you're listening right now and you don't have a plan in place, which you likely don't, I'm sure if you're not retired, you're concerned about when you can retire. If you're not retired or retired, you're concerned about, will you run out of money? Will you have enough income for inflation? Will you have enough income if you or your spouse needs long-term care? Can you do the things that you want in retirement? All those things are big question marks right now. If you have a plan, those question marks get dissolved, Dan.
When people right now, they are way more stressed than they were 5 or 10 years ago. And COVID has had a lot to do with that. Politics has had a lot to do with that. Just the world in general, people's attitudes, everything has had to do with people being more stressed. People want to retire now. And if you want to retire and don't know if you can and continue to work, that's going to age you quicker than it should. And if you know you can retire at a certain point, it'll make it a lot easier, as Jim just talked about, getting to that point. What if you thought that you had to work to 65, but what if you could retire at 60? What if this lady, we could design a plan, which we might be able to, depending on what her true budget is. She might be able to retire this year or at 61 or 62. How would that make her feel then?
It'll make her feel great. But also, and the other part of this is maybe you do like your job, but you don't know if you can retire. Wouldn't it be great if you knew you could retire immediately, but you could work if you wanted to, and you could disengage and retire at any time. Wouldn't that be a great feeling, going to work every morning and say, hey, I don't have to work. I'm going to work because I really love my job and my profession, knowing that you can unplug at any time. And that's what we see almost every day, Dan, with the clients that we do plans for.
Definitely. Most important thing right now is take advantage of our free financial consultation with us. Just dial pound 250 on the cell phone and say the keyword money, or go to our website, peakfin.com, and use the chat feature to set up an appointment. Because, Jim, we're going to do everything people want right now. We're going to provide a one-on-one opportunity to meet with us. And we're going to answer their questions, find out where they're at. We're going to give them a comprehensive consultation, no cost, and really start to dig in what they want to happen. We're going to find out what they're paying in fees on their brokerage accounts, their 401k. We're going to find out what their budget needs to be at retirement. We're going to create an income plan that will show them how they're going to create their retirement paychecks so they don't have to worry about where their money is going to come from at retirement. We're going to show them how to make their assets feel liquid, because right now their assets don't feel like anything to them other than a worry. It causes anxiety. So we're going to help them make those choices, including Social Security. And when we do all these things, it's going to make people feel so much more confident about everything about their money. And all you have to do right now is dial pound 250 on your cell phone, say the keyword money, or go to peakfin.com and use the chat feature, and we'll be glad to help you. We look forward to seeing you soon.
For more information about Peak Financial Freedom Group or to schedule a consultation, just go to our website, peakfin.com. That's peakfin.com. And thanks for watching.